Hey, it's look at that. It's Ryan Peterson in a longer and thicker beard. I'm Brian Houston. It's been a hot minute, and I do mean hot, since we've been with you on Bryan and Ryan, but summer's finally starting to wind down and we're getting close to football season. We're a little over a week and a half away from high school and the first 0 week of college. And then the pros are already in the preseason. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. It's always good when football season is ramping back up, and I've been so desperate to watch it. I've even been watching preseason football, which is not good football, but it is football. So I'm eager for the season kickoff with the Cowboys and Bucks, which I mean is getting close. College football and high school start before that, so excited.
Yeah, the one thing we've learned is that you can't, you pretty much have to dismiss anything that happens at halftime on, because none
Yeah.
of those guys are going to make a team. And then with the Cowboys, what you learn is really nothing that happens even from kickoff on really matters, except if you're watching a little bit of defense, because none of the players, none of the stars on offense are playing. There's no Dak because of the shoulder injury. Zeke's being held out. You're not going to see much of him. CD Lamb, you go down the list. I mean, all the great players, none of them are playing right now. In fact, the interesting thing, Ryan, is that after watching the Hall of Fame game against the Steelers in Canton, they were more concerned about the joint practice they were going to have against the Rams on Saturday and keeping them fresh for that than they were about that game. That tells you a lot right there.
No, and I think I've seen it with some other teams too. I do think the coaches in the preseason, they are more worried about the practice reps because teams have these joint practices. They can have, 2 full days of reps, and they can do situational things, work on situational things that you can't necessarily do in a game. So they do care more about that kind of stuff than the preseason. You know, when I was younger, I know there was a time back when starters played an entire preseason game, which is nuts to me. I think like back in the 70s, they were doing that, but starters did at least always need it to kind of work the kinks out, play a quarter, maybe a half. But now you have a lot of teams, they don't play the starters at all. And if you're the Cowboys, nothing that happens in the preseason matters at all. That offense, as long as Dak is back and ready, which it sounds like the reports this week, he is making progress and he should be ready to go. That offense is going to score a ton of points, but it's just going to come down to, I guess in the preseason, you're wanting to see, is the defense, are there any guys shining that can maybe add some depth or some hidden gems that can make the defense better? Because for the Cowboys, as we've said many times, if they can just be average, they're going to be good in this division. They should definitely be the best team. So they just need to get some gems. Maybe to me, the preseason for them is about finding some depth and some guys that can maybe help on defense, because offensively, when they have everybody in, they're going to score a lot of points, or at least they should.
The one thing we have learned about preseason so far, first of all, on the offensive side, is that if Dak goes down, it's down the toilet, because as much as you'd like to hope that Garrett Gilbert could be the next Andy Dalton, that's just not the case. Maybe someday, but he's not there right now. It's not helping that he's not having all of the regular players in there. He doesn't have the regular line in front of him. So you just don't know how much he can actually do. But you don't like their chances if Dak's not able to play.
And in preseason, if you don't have the starting line in, like, to me, I don't see how you can ever really give a fair evaluation of running backs and quarterbacks, because the offensive line play in the league is so bad to begin with. And if you're talking about second and third string guys playing, it's going to be even worse. So it's just hard. And the Cowboys, and look, I don't blame the Cowboys with all the injuries they had last year. They want those guys ready for opening night against Tampa Bay. But I at this point, I wouldn't care about. It's not even, to me, worth watching the offense when they're on the field in the preseason. I'm just, I'd be more worried about just, do I see anybody on defense that I think has a chance to be good?
And there have been some players that have stepped up, a lot of folks that nobody knows about that have kind of come out of nowhere, but we have found out for sure that whether they wanted to draft him or not, Micah Parsons is going to be a difference maker on defense. I mean, they were really, really wanting to get one of those top corners, and then they felt like they had to settle for Micah Parsons. Well, all reports are that this guy is a freaking beast.
Yeah, and with Jalen Smith not looking like
Ooh.
he has the juice, you know, they're really going to need him because they need, you know, Micah Parsons could be the guy that changes this defense if they can have just fast smash mouth, sideline to sideline playmaker. It can make everyone else better. And with him, and if Vander Esch is healthy, we could see a huge improvement from the defense.
I know one thing we found out too, that while Micah Parsons is just off the chart, there's no way he's not in the starting lineup when things start. The scary thing is how far Jalen Smith has fallen, because at this point, right now, he's the 5th best linebacker on this team. And quite honestly, I'm not sure he's got a roster spot based on his ability to chase down. We saw a play on Twitter that they used from the Cardinal game where he was trying to cover a back out of the flat, and Leighton Vander Esch passed him from the other side of the field to catch that running back. Jalen just couldn't get there, and it's sad to see. But right now, he can't run, he can't cut, his hips, are just, nothing is working below the waist. And I don't know if that means it's going to be that way and his career's done. But I don't know how, if you're looking at things objectively, I don't know how you keep him on the roster.
Yeah, but as we've seen before, Jerry Jones doesn't always look at things subjectively. So we'll see. From a football standpoint, you're right. And, there's always, you see a surprise cut that maybe you weren't expecting. But like you said, I mean, there's no way he's a starter. And he's making a lot of money to be a backup. I don't know what the cap hit would be if they did release him. But that's going to be that could be one of the big names to watch on the final cut day.
Biggest concern, obviously, is Dak's shoulder. They were very encouraged. He was supposed to have gone back to Dallas on the night that the Cowboys played the Cardinals. He was supposed to have gone back to Dallas for an MRI. Instead, he went through a full throwing warm-up before the game, before regular warm-ups against Phoenix, and by all accounts looked pretty good, had improved quite a bit, which is encouraging. You really hope that the arm injury was just a strain because he's compensating for something he feels might be a weakness in his ankle.
Right.
Because the ankle that he injured is the ankle he pushes off on. And so you just hope that's it, and it's strengthened now, and he's going to be able to come back. The one thing we do know, based on what Mike McCarthy says, is it doesn't look, he's not going to play in the 3rd preseason game. And if he doesn't play in the 3rd, McCarthy's already said he's not playing in the 4th one. So he may get no preseason reps, which means he will have gone almost a full year without any meaningful reps in a football game as they get ready to go into the game against Tampa Bay.
And that to me is the biggest concern. If he had played last season all the way through, I don't think it would be as concerning. But this is a guy that missed a ton of last season, and then immediately, right when camp starts, has the issue with his shoulder. So I know Dak's going to be good once he's healthy and ready to go, but he's definitely going to have to work out some kinks. When you haven't played that long, timing with your receivers, it's going to be interesting to see how long will it take for Dak to get back to being Dak. And when you're opening the season in prime time against that Tampa Bay defense, that could end up being a rough night if Dak hasn't had any game reps. He's had very little practice time. Not ideal to open the season like that.
I will say, though, as much as we talk about the Tampa Bay front, which gets everything is said about them is true, I feel a lot better about Dak's chances with Lyle Collins and Tyron Smith playing on those edges than what Patrick Mahomes had in front of him in the Super Bowl when he was running for his life the whole time. I feel like at least they'll hold up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and that's Tyron Smith back. That's a game changer period for the Cowboys. That one guy being back is a game changer. Collins, if the offensive, because I mean, the Cowboys offensive line last year was a shill of what they were supposed to be. So We talk about how bad the defense was. The offense, the offensive line was just gone and decimated. So yeah, they definitely should be better. But still, that's a tough way for Dak with no reps, very few reps, and no live game action coming back. That'll be interesting. But that's the thing. And that's why I'm saying and look, hey, maybe the Cowboys have a great game. Dak would be amazing and they'd win that opening Thursday night. But I don't think you're going to see fans overreact based on what happens, because that's what we do. But I don't think you should read too much into that game one way or the other. Now, if they win, hey, they're going to the Super Bowl, right? But if they lose, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think, and especially now with 17 games, there's another extra week in the season. I think it'll take a little time for the offense to get going. But when they do, I mean, with CeeDee Lamb is going to be a monster. Amari, if he's healthy, he's good. Zeke, I think, will be better this year. The offensive line is better. It should be a scary offense.
All right, another big story out of the NFL today. Shocker of shockers, 34-year-old Tim Tebow has been cut by his own old college coach, Urban Meyer. I mean, Tim Tebow he's a historic figure. I know he's beloved. He's one of the most popular athletes to ever play college football, and he's tried to chase his dream as a pro. The odds were so long against this one, though, making a shift to tight end, which a lot of people said he should have done coming out of college. But he was stubborn about that. He wanted to play quarterback, and we found out pretty quickly, you found out especially as a Broncos fan, that he just can't. He doesn't have that skill set.
And that's what's, so silly about this is he's doing this at 34.
Did you look at him though?
Well, but I'm saying is he plays a position for the first time at the age of 34. He had been out of the NFL for 10 years, something like that. This is something that he should have done. Look, I think he could have been a Taysom Hill. Mm-hmm. He could have been a guy like that, a weapon on the goal line and in certain packages and short yardage, and then occasionally throw. But he didn't, Taysom Hill has made a heck of a career out of that. And, Tebow had his chance, and it's on him that he wouldn't do it. But, I think he says he has no regrets. And, he's had, and like you said, I love Tim Tebow, the person. I love him as a competitor. But, he just was not an NFL quarterback. And then to see him do this at 34, and it was almost kind of, I don't know if you watched any of the clips of him playing. It
wasn't pretty.
It was a little cringeworthy, like him trying to throw a block, and then there was one play he had actually run wide open, but it was in the same area as another receiver, and the receiver ran in front of him and caught the ball. It just wasn't meant to be.
It was not. And so enough of that. I don't know if you got a chance. I know you were on vacation the previous week. Did you get a chance to see any of the Field of Dreams baseball game?
I saw bits and pieces. I did not, and it ended up being a great game. I went back and watched the introduction. I will say, I had goosebumps when Kevin Costner walked out of the field, onto the field from the corn. And then when all the players, and you see their silhouettes coming out. As a kid that loved that movie Field of Dreams growing up, it was pretty cool. I have to say, I had goosebumps seeing that. And then the game ended up being great. Watching the home runs going into the cornfield was just visually so cool. And it just felt, my thing with baseball, so many games that just feel like they don't really mean anything because there's so many. And this one felt different. And it was fun. I see that they've announced that they're going to do it again next year. It's going to be the Cubs and the Reds, I believe. So this is something that they should do every year. If every baseball game was like this, I'd watch a lot more. But that's the thing, it's a one game.
Well, and it was the most watched regular season game in 14 years or something like that.
It was a huge number.
They had almost 7 million people watch this game. And for once, Major League Baseball got it right. For once, they found a way to do something that brought good light to the sport And then, as Kevin Costner said, at the last thing he said in his speech before he left the field, he said, "It's perfect." And it really was. It was perfect. The whole setting, the field looked tremendous. The cornfield looked tremendous. The weather held up. The game was tremendous. I mean, everything about it just,
The White Sox jerseys, like I
yes,
love those old White Sox jerseys, everything.
it was just perfect. It really was. And that's my only fear about them doing this on an annual basis is how do you top what happened this past week? There's nothing that's going to top that.
Yeah, you
You
won't
know,
be able to.
and you know, I fear that it will lose its specialty, you know, the special feeling that it had because of that. But you know, hey, go for it. It's a unique idea. It's kind of like the you know, having the frozen hockey game every year outdoors, like at the Cotton Bowl or something.
Yeah,
Like
it's like that's what I was going to compare it to as well. You know, and that too kind of has lost its luster. At the beginning, it was really cool, but baseball is so desperate to be relevant and for good publicity. I kind of feel like, you know, they don't really have a choice. They got to keep they need to keep it an annual thing, at least for now. And I will say baseball has had, you know, for as bad as things have been, it's been a couple pretty good months. The All-Star weekend was pretty good, was pretty great. I actually enjoyed it. And then with this, so some good things, but baseball just hasn't been relevant. But that TV rating, I mean, that you have the biggest you know, viewership you've had in 14, 15 years. Obviously, the public liked it.
yeah, now you got to hope that the Major League Baseball Players Union and the owners don't find a way to ruin the good feeling, because they're getting ready to go into another contract negotiation. And you know how those go, because they hate each other. They don't trust each other. They don't want to work with each other. And so all that glowing, warm feeling we had about the great game of baseball, it's baseball, Ray. You know, you know, all that's going to go away when they start
Yeah,
fighting over money again here pretty soon, and
and it
end
will
up in another.
happen.
Oh, no doubt. And, you know, and probably have another strike and all of that. So what else is on your radar?
I don't really. I mean, football is on my radar. So I'm excited. Oh, okay. One big thing we do need to talk about. So the big, I don't. It did happen this week or last week? Because again, I was out last week. But I guess what the Pac-12, the ACC,
Yeah.
and the Big Ten have met or are meeting about an alliance.
And the Big 12 was left out of that
And the
meeting.
Big 12 was left out. So, I mean, obviously, Brian, and I don't know what an alliance with those three leagues actually means. I don't know if they know what it means, if they're just exploring their options. But for the Big 12 to not even get called to the table, I mean, what are we doing anymore? I mean, the league is done.
It's over. I mean, it's literally the fact that they weren't even included in the meeting after Bob Bowlesby had gone to California and met with the new Pac-12 commissioner. The fact that they were left out of that meeting tells you they bring nothing of value to any combination that makes any sense. And what these three conferences are trying to do is, they know the SEC is the big bad monster, and what they're trying to do is find some way to partner together so that they have something to offer to a TV network that can somewhat rival what the SEC is getting from a TV deal with ESPN. So if they can find a way to say, hey, look, here's Clemson and Florida State, and here's Ohio State and Penn State and Wisconsin and maybe Michigan. And now look over here, we've got USC and Oregon and maybe UCLA, the brand names. We've got something we can offer to you that makes it, you know, something that maybe Fox Sports says, hey, we want that package, because at least we know we're going to get those teams. That's basically what the Big 12's been doing for forever, is just living off of the hope that you'll get Texas and Oklahoma pretty much every weekend in some form or fashion.
So do you think, and I haven't read enough about it to know, do you think, I mean, is this about these leagues possibly joining, or
Yeah.
just have, okay, so, but maybe scheduling, like where they play each other?
See, I see scheduling alliances, but I will tell you this, if the idea is to make these scheduling alliances exclusive to those three conferences, it's never going to happen, because the ACC has too many state rivalry games with SEC
Yeah.
schools. Clemson and South Carolina are not going to stop playing. Florida State's not going to stop playing Florida and Miami. Right. It's just not going to happen. So I don't see it. Honestly, I don't see what the Big Ten gets out of it.
Yeah, that was the one that surprised me. And the Big Ten, is pretty arrogant. I feel like the Big Ten thinks they're as good as the SEC to begin with.
Up until just recently, they were making the most money in the TV deal.
Yeah.
And they didn't have, they had the Big Ten network, but it isn't anything like what the SEC network's been doing.
Yeah.
But I just don't see now I see value in, say Ohio State playing USC.
Yeah, that would be fun.
But they do that in the Rose Bowl. Those kinds of games I could see value in. But if you're going to tell me that Rutgers playing Arizona State is going to bring eyeballs,
yeah,
man,
I don't think I'll plan my day around that one.
Boy, I can't wait to see that Indiana, UCLA game. That ought to be a real barn burner.
I do wonder, and look, maybe it was just more. And the optics of it, and there's not a whole lot of substance to it, but it does not look good for the Big 12. And you do have to wonder those 8 remaining teams or schools. I don't know where they go from here. I don't know what their next step is. What do you do if these other 3 power leagues are meeting and leaving you out? At this point, what do those 8 schools do? And I know they act like the Americans beneath them, but I don't, outside of them kind of combining, I don't know what else they do.
It is beneath them only in that, and I'm not saying this from a competitive standpoint, I'm saying it is beneath them only in that if they take that step back and become a group of 5 team, they lose millions of dollars.
Right.
Because they're
but what else are they going to do?
That's a good question. And I mean, that's where it looks to me like it's going to have to be every man for himself. And, I know that the Texas schools, the remaining Texas schools, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, they're trying to hold things together and do things to keep the state schools protected. But, again, if TCU gets an offer to go to the Pac-12 and the other 2 don't, do you think TCU's going to turn that down? Not a chance.
They'd be insane to.
That's what I'm talking about. And you're sitting there with some schools. Unfortunately, you got a defending national champion basketball team that brings nothing to the table in terms of TV ratings. I mean, it's at Texas Tech. Maybe back when Leach was there and they were winning, you could say, okay, they've got a little bit of something, but that hasn't happened in a while now. So, and TCU's up and down. And they're coming off of a losing year. So it's been, there's no position of strength for anybody remaining. Iowa State and Oklahoma State are the only 2 programs that seem to be on an upward trend right now. And I know Oklahoma State's doing everything they can not to drop down to a group of 5 level. And Matt Campbell and his program, I mean, they're doing everything they can to get into the Big Ten, I'm guessing, and I'm sure Iowa's fighting all of that.
Yeah, and geographically, obviously, Iowa State in the Big Ten makes a lot of sense. But it's just after this story came out with these other 3 leagues meeting, I just feel like at this point, I don't know what else the Big 12 schools are going to do, and they don't want to hear this. But I mean, you're out of options at this point.
It's not looking good. And, unfortunately, it's the future of college football. I mean, the bottom line is what's driving all of this. And for instance, Notre Dame, the first Notre Dame game is going to be against Tulsa. It's not going to be on NBC. It's going to be on the Peacock streaming service. And that's where all of this is going. That's where all of this is going. All these big games, eventually they're going to start charging. It's going to be like charging for an MMA fight or a heavyweight fight. You're going to have to start paying top dollar for those top games at some point. And it's all about money. And they never have enough, it seems. So I don't know. Change is inevitable. You just have to accept it. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. It's just, that's the one thing that's always constant. But it's pretty depressing for those teams. Again, when you look at a TCU that was in 5 different conferences trying to regain Power 5 status.
Yeah.
And then finally, and earned their way, fought their way back, earned it with a Rose Bowl win over Wisconsin and Russell Wilson, and then got the invite to come into the Big 12 and got back on that national stage. And you thought, okay, I could see where a TCU would do whatever they've got to do to get to stay where they are, to stay on that level. And because the merging with the AAC does nothing for them.
Right.
It doesn't do anything for the AAC, really. It doesn't make the league that much better. It doesn't increase your TV coverage any. It's just, I don't know. It's just, this is not going to go well. So, well, other than that, it's been really nice to talk to you as we get closer to the football. Looking forward to it. High school football is coming up on this coming week from Friday. We're recording on August the 17th, and the first game's on the 27th. And kids are out there banging on each other now. And the only thing that could put a stop to it is this surge we're having with COVID right now. You're just hoping that we don't end up with a replay of what we got last year, where we suddenly have to start limiting the number of people going to games and things like that.
And I saw one game on Twitter. I saw one game has already been canceled for week 0 in high school football in Texas.
I mean, you're going to be dealing with a lot of, what available players. I know in the college realm, the conferences have come out really strong about this. They say if you have players that test positive and you can't field a team, you're going to forfeit the game. In the NFL, not only is the team that can't field a team going to lose a game check, the team that they're playing is going to lose a game check, putting a lot of pressure on those players to get the shot.
Yeah, which this is for another day, but I don't understand how you penalize the team.
I think it's all about pressure. I think it's all about pressure to get these guys that were, like I said, at one point, the Washington football team was at like 55% vaccination rate. With a coach that's got cancer.
Right.
And they just, so I think it's all about trying to put as much pressure on these players. And, if there's a player that's been vaccinated who's got a chance of losing a paycheck because, the guy next to him in the locker room refuses to get a shot, that's not going to go, that conversation's not going well right now.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. Ryan, good to talk to you as always.
Yes, sir.
We look forward to talking to you next week. And again, we hope we've been kind of erratic in the summertime. It's to be expected, but we'll get back on some kind of a regular schedule here as we get into football season and we start talking about real games and quit worrying about NIL and conference realignment and all that other goofiness and just start talking about ball.
Yes, that's real games that matter.
All right. Hey, man, thanks for being with us. And again, thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends about us. The two of you that are hanging in there with us, we appreciate it. Just hold on tight, and we'll talk to you next week.